The wedding invitation arrived on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, its ivory envelope nestled between credit card bills and supermarket flyers. I might have missed it entirely if not for the elegant calligraphy that spelled out my name, Madeline Hayes. The return address made my stomach lurch, Rebecca Collins, my best friend since college. The same Rebecca who, 6 months ago, had called to tell me she was dating James. My James. Or rather, my ex-James. I stood in the hallway of my apartment, rainwater dripping from my coat onto the hardwood floor as I stared at the unopened envelope. Part of me wanted to toss it into the trash, pretend it had been lost in the mail. But curiosity, or perhaps masochism, won out. I slid my finger under the seal and pulled out a card adorned with intertwined roses and gold embossing. Rebecca Collins and James Mitchell request the honor of your presence. The words blurred as unexpected tears filled my eyes. 6 months. They'd been dating for 6 months, and now they were getting married? James and I had been together for 3 years, and he'd always dodged the marriage conversation like it was a bullet aimed at his heart. "It's just not the right time, Maddie," he'd say, kissing my forehead in that patronizing way that used to make me feel cherished but now felt like a placeholder for actual commitment. I tossed the invitation onto my kitchen counter and poured myself a generous glass of Cabernet, the bottle I'd been saving for a special occasion. Well, finding out your best friend is marrying your ex-boyfriend certainly qualifies as special, doesn't it? My phone buzzed with a text. As if summoned by my bitter thoughts, Rebecca's name flashed on the screen. "Did you get it? Please say you'll be there. It wouldn't be the same without my maid of honor." The wine turned sour in my mouth. Maid of honor? Was she serious? I set the phone down without responding and moved to the window, watching raindrops race down the glass. Each one reminded me of a memory I'd tried to wash away. Rebecca and I, sharing secrets over midnight margaritas. Rebecca holding my hand at my father's funeral. Rebecca meeting James for the first time at my birthday party, her eyes lighting up when he walked in. I should have known then. Should have seen the way she looked at him, the way she always managed to bring him up in conversation. James mentioned this great book. James said the funniest thing. James thinks. But I had been blind, willfully, perhaps. Because Rebecca was my person, the sister I never had. The one constant in my life as I moved from one doomed relationship to another. Until James. He was supposed to be different. He was supposed to be forever. I grabbed my phone and typed out a reply before I could overthink it. "Congratulations. I'm so happy for you both. Of course I'll be there." The lie tasted like ash on my tongue, but what choice did I have? Rebecca had been there for me through everything. If I rejected her now, I'd be alone. Completely alone. My phone rang almost immediately. "Maddie." Rebecca's voice bubbled with excitement. "Oh my God, I was so worried you'd say no." "Thank you, thank you, thank you." How could I say no? I forced warmth into my voice, gripping my wineglass so tightly I worried it might shatter. "I know this is complicated," she said, her tone softening. "But James and it happened so fast. When you know, right? When you know, you know." The same words James had whispered to me on our third date, as we lay tangled in my sheets, the morning sun painting patterns across our skin. "Right," I agreed, swallowing the lump in my throat. "So, maid of honor, huh? That's a big ask, Becca." "I know. And if it's too much, I understand. But you're my best friend, Maddie. There's no one else I'd want standing beside me." No one except my ex-boyfriend, apparently. Let me think about it, I said finally. The maid of honor thing. I'll definitely be at the wedding, but I need some time to process. Of course. Her voice was small now, hesitant. Take all the time you need. And Maddie? Thank you. For being you. I ended the call and sank onto my couch, the half-empty wine bottle now beside me. Being me. What did that even mean anymore? The me who had loved James for 3 years? The me who had considered Rebecca a sister? Or this new me, the woman who had just agreed to watch her best friend marry the man she still loved? The engagement party was exactly as I'd imagined, elegant, tasteful, and absolutely excruciating. Rebecca's parents had rented out the rooftop of the Meridian, downtown's most exclusive hotel. Fairy lights twinkled overhead, champagne flowed freely, and a string quartet played soft melodies that drifted through the warm summer evening. I stood in the corner, nursing my second, or was it third, glass of champagne, watching as Rebecca floated through the crowd. She wore a cream-colored dress that made her look ethereal, her dark hair swept into an intricate updo that highlighted her delicate features. Next to her, James looked more handsome than I remembered, his blue eyes crinkling as he laughed at something one of the guests said. They were perfect together. That was the worst part. Anyone could see it, the way they moved in sync, the private smiles they shared, how his hand always found the small of her back. It was as if they had been created for each other, and my 3 years with James had been nothing but a placeholder until he found his true match. Quite the party, isn't it? I turned to find Rebecca's brother, Nathan, standing beside me. He had the same dark hair and expressive eyes as his sister, but where she was all graceful movements and soft edges, Nathan was sharp angles and barely contained intensity. It's lovely, I said, forcing a smile. Rebecca has always had impeccable taste. In everything except men, Nathan muttered, taking a swig of his beer. Present company excluded, of course. I raised an eyebrow. Not a fan of the groom-to-be? Let's just say I find the timing suspicious. His eyes met mine, a flash of understanding passing between us. 3 months after breaking up with you, he's suddenly madly in love with your best friend? Convenient. The champagne burned in my throat. It was 6 months, actually. Oh, well, that makes it all better then. His sarcasm was oddly comforting. How are you really doing with all this, Madeline? I'd forgotten how direct Nathan could be. In all the years I'd known Rebecca, her brother had been a peripheral figure, the slightly older, significantly more cynical sibling who appeared at family events only to disappear just as quickly. I'm fine, I said automatically, the lie smooth from repetition. Nathan's laugh was low and humorless. Sure you are. That's why you're hiding in the corner instead of mingling. That's why you've barely looked at them all night. I bristled. I'm not hiding. And what do you care, anyway? We've spoken maybe 10 times in all the years I've known your sister. 11, actually. Not that I've been counting. His expression softened slightly. Look, I know it's none of my business. But Rebecca's my sister, and I care about her. And from what I remember, you were always straight with her. If something's off here. Nothing's off, I interrupted, suddenly defensive of Rebecca despite everything. They're in love. They're getting married. End of story. Nathan studied me for a moment, then nodded. If you say so. But just so you know, you're not the only one who thinks this whole thing is moving way too fast. Before I could respond, Rebecca appeared at my side, cheeks flushed with excitement or champagne or both. There you are, she exclaimed, linking her arm through mine. I've been looking everywhere for you. Have you been hiding with my grumpy brother this whole time? Just catching up, I said, forcing brightness into my voice. Well, now you have to come meet James's parents. They're dying to meet my maid of honor. I froze. I never actually agreed to. Please, Maddie? Rebecca's eyes were wide, pleading. I know I'm asking a lot, but it would mean everything to me. Over her shoulder, I caught Nathan watching us, his expression unreadable. Something about his scrutiny made me straighten my spine. Of course, I heard myself say. Lead the way. Rebecca's smile was radiant as she pulled me through the crowd toward an elegant couple who could only be James's parents. I had heard about them countless times but never met them, another thing that had bothered me during our relationship. James had always had an excuse for why it wasn't the right time. Mom, Dad, James said, appearing beside us, this is Madeline, Rebecca's maid of honor and one of our dearest friends. One of our dearest friends. The casual erasure of our relationship made my stomach turn. Lovely to meet you, dear, Mrs. Mitchell said, taking my hands in hers. James has told us so much about you. I wondered what exactly he had told them. That we dated for 3 years? That I had picked out names for our future children? That I had once found a list of engagement ring styles in his browser history, only to have him break up with me 2 weeks later? All good things, I hope, I managed, the platitude tasting bitter on my tongue. Of course, Mr. Mitchell replied, giving me an appraising look. Though I must say, Rebecca never mentioned how beautiful you are. Must have been worried about the competition. Rebecca laughed, a high, nervous sound. Daddy Mitchell. Behave yourself. Just teasing, my dear. He winked at me. We're so glad you could be here to support Rebecca and James. It's clear how much they love each other. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Next to me, James shifted uncomfortably, his eyes fixed on a point somewhere above my head. Actually, Rebecca said, squeezing my arm, Maddie and James have known each other for years. They're old friends. Old friends. The downgrade from ex-girlfriend to old friend was happening right before my eyes. Is that so? Mrs. Mitchell asked, clearly intrigued. How wonderful to have that history between you all. Yes, I said, finally finding my voice. James and I dated for 3 years before he and Rebecca got together. Isn't that right, James? A hush fell over our little circle. James's face went pale, while Rebecca's grip on my arm became painful. Well, Mrs. Mitchell said after a moment, her smile now strained, how modern. Excuse me, I murmured, extracting myself from Rebecca's grasp. I need some air. I made my way to the edge of the rooftop, breathing deeply as I stared out at the city lights. What was I doing? I had promised myself I would be supportive, that I would play this role perfectly. But one loaded comment from James's father, and I had cracked. That was quite the exit. Nathan appeared beside me again, leaning on the railing. He offered me a glass of what looked like whiskey. Thought you might need something stronger than champagne, he said. I accepted the drink gratefully, taking a long sip. The liquor burned pleasantly down my throat. I think I just ruined my best friend's engagement party. Nathan shrugged. Looked to me like you just told the truth. Nothing wrong with that. There is when the truth hurts people you care about. He studied me for a moment. You're a better person than I am, Madeline Hayes. If someone did to me what they did to you, I wouldn't be standing at their engagement party trying to be supportive. I laughed despite myself. What would you be doing? Probably something petty and immature. Sending glitter bombs to their house. Signing them up for obscure mailing lists. Anonymous calls in the middle of the night. Tempting, I admitted, but not really my style. No, he agreed, his eyes softening. You're too kind for that. It's admirable. And a little infuriating. Before I could respond, James appeared, his expression grim. Maddie, can we talk? Nathan straightened, a protective stance that surprised me. Everything okay here? It's fine, I assured him, though my racing heart suggested otherwise. I'll catch up with you later. Nathan hesitated, then nodded, squeezing my shoulder briefly before disappearing into the crowd. James led me to a quieter corner of the rooftop, away from the music and chatter. Up close, I could see the faint shadows under his eyes, the tension in his jaw. That was uncalled for, he said without preamble. You embarrassed Rebecca in front of my parents. I told the truth, I countered. Or would you prefer I pretend we never happened? He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so familiar it made my chest ache. Of course not. But there's a time and place, Maddie. This is supposed to be a happy occasion. For who? I asked, my voice dropping to a whisper. Because I'm standing here watching my best friend marry the man I thought would propose to me, and I'm expected to smile and pretend it doesn't kill me inside. James had the decency to look ashamed. I never meant to hurt you. Neither of us did. It just happened. Things don't just happen, James. You made choices. Both of you did. I know. He sighed heavily. And I'm sorry. But I love her, Maddie. I didn't expect to, but I do. The words hit me like physical blows. I had known, of course, you don't propose to someone unless you love them, but hearing him say it out loud made it real in a way it hadn't been before. Why her? I asked, the question I'd been holding back for months finally escaping. Why my best friend? James looked away, his profile sharp against the city lights. I didn't plan it. After we broke up, I was a mess. Rebecca was there for me, for both of us. One night, we were talking, and I don't know. Something shifted. I saw her differently. While you were still with me? Were you thinking about her when we were together? No. God, no, Maddie. It wasn't like that. I loved you. I did. But with Rebecca. He paused, searching for words. It's different. Easier, somehow. Easier, I repeated, the word hollow. Well, I'm glad you found something easy. Heaven forbid relationships require actual work. That's not fair. None of this is fair. My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. You broke up with me, started dating my best friend, and now you're getting married. And I'm supposed to stand beside her and celebrate? How is any of this fair? James reached for my hand, but I pulled away. Maddie, please. If you can't do this, we understand. But Rebecca loves you. She wants you there. And I want us to be okay. We are never going to be okay, James, I said quietly. But I'll be there. Not for you, for her. Because despite everything, she's still my best friend. And I owe her more than I owe you. Relief washed over his face. Thank you. Thank you. I nodded stiffly, then turned to leave. But something made me pause. James? Yes? Did you ever love me as much as you love her? The question hung between us, heavy with history and heartbreak. James's expression crumpled. I loved you the best I knew how at the time, he said finally. But with Rebecca, I'm a different person. A better one. I nodded, absorbing the blow. Good to know. I hope you're both very happy together. I walked away before he could see the tears forming. As I passed the bar, Nathan fell into step beside me. Leaving so soon? I think I've fulfilled my supportive best friend quota for the night, I said, not slowing my pace. Let me drive you home, he offered. You've had a lot to drink, and I'm headed out anyway. I wanted to refuse, but the truth was I wasn't sure I could face the Uber ride alone with my thoughts. That would be really nice. Thank you. The bridal shop was a sea of white tulle and satin, champagne glasses tinkling as Rebecca and her bridesmaids sipped mimosas and waited for her to emerge from the fitting room. Can you believe she found the dress on the first try? Emily, Rebecca's cousin, gushed. It's like it was made for her. Everything's always made for Rebecca, I muttered into my glass, then forced a smile when Emily glanced my way. She's just lucky that way. The curtain rustled, and Rebecca stepped out, a vision in ivory lace that hugged her slender figure before flaring out at the knees. The sweetheart neckline showcased her collarbones, and delicate beadwork caught the light as she moved. She was breathtaking. Oh my God, Zoe breathed, setting down her glass. Rebecca, you look incredible. Rebecca's eyes found mine in the mirror, seeking my approval. There was vulnerability there that caught me off guard. She actually cared what I thought. It's perfect, I said truthfully. James won't be able to take his eyes off you. Her smile was radiant, relief evident in her posture. You really think so? I know so. I stood, adjusting the veil that had slipped slightly. He always did have good taste in women. The joke landed better than I expected, drawing laughs from the other bridesmaids. Rebecca squeezed my hand, gratitude in her eyes. Now for the bridesmaids' dresses, she announced, signaling to the sales associate who had been hovering nearby. Soon we were ushered into separate fitting rooms, each with a gown in the same shade of emerald green. I slipped into mine, cursing silently as the zipper caught halfway up. After struggling for a moment, I was forced to open the door and look for help. Need a hand? I jumped at the voice, spinning to find Nathan leaning against the wall, looking out of place in his jeans and leather jacket. What are you doing here? I hissed, clutching the gown to my chest. Dropping off Mom's credit card, he explained, holding up the platinum card in question. She couldn't make it but wanted to treat everyone to lunch after. How thoughtful, I said, still trying to keep the dress from slipping. Could you, find someone to help me with this zipper? Nathan stepped forward. Turn around. I've got it. I meant a sales associate or one of the other bridesmaids. They're all busy fawning over my sister. Come on, I promise I won't look. Reluctantly, I turned, holding my hair out of the way as Nathan tugged the zipper upward. His fingers brushed against my skin, sending an unexpected shiver down my spine. There, he said, his voice strangely gruff. All set. I turned to thank him, surprised to find him still standing close. His eyes traveled from my face down the length of the dress, then back up again. Green suits you, he said softly. Brings out your eyes. I felt a flush creep up my neck. Thanks. I should go show Rebecca. Nathan nodded, stepping back. I'll see you at lunch. Try the pasta at Giovanni's, it's worth the carbs. Before I could respond, he was gone, leaving me staring after him, confused by the rapid beating of my heart. I shook it off, attributing it to the stress of the day, and made my way back to the main area where Rebecca was waiting. "It's perfect. You all look stunning," she declared when she saw us. Over the next few weeks, I threw myself into maid of honor duties, helping plan the bachelorette party, addressing invitations, listening to Rebecca gush about honeymoon destinations. It was easier to focus on these tasks than to examine the complicated emotions swirling beneath the surface. And then there was Nathan. What had started as an unexpected connection at the engagement party had evolved into something I wasn't quite ready to name. Coffee dates that turned into dinner. Late-night phone calls that left me smiling into the darkness. His presence made the wedding preparations bearable, offering me glimpses of joy amid the pain. "You don't have to do this, you know," he said one evening as we walked through the park near my apartment. "Be in the wedding. Put yourself through this." I sighed, watching a family of ducks glide across the pond. "Yes, I do. Rebecca's been my best friend since college. If I back out now, she'd understand. She knows this is killing you." "Does she?" I turned to face him. "Because sometimes I think she genuinely believes I'm okay with all of this. That I've moved on." Nathan tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, his touch gentle. "Have you moved on?" I considered the question, searching for honesty in a situation clouded by competing loyalties. "I'm getting there. Slowly." "Because of me?" There was vulnerability in his voice that surprised me. "Partly," I admitted. "You make it easier. Being around you. I don't feel like the pathetic ex-girlfriend. I just feel like Madeline." His smile was soft, his eyes warm. "I like Madeline. A lot. I like you too. But it's complicated, Nathan. You're Rebecca's brother. I'm her best friend. If this, whatever this is, doesn't work out, it'll be messy," he finished for me. "I know. But what if it does work out? What if this is the start of something good, Madeline?" The hope in his voice made my heart constrict. "I can't think that far ahead right now. The wedding is in 3 weeks. Let's just take it day by day." Nathan nodded, though I could see the disappointment he tried to hide. "Day by day. I can do that." 2 days later, I found myself at Rebecca's apartment for the final wedding details. She had insisted on a face-to-face meeting, claiming there was too much to discuss over the phone. But as soon as I arrived, I sensed there was more to it. "Okay, what's going on?" I asked as she fidgeted with her engagement ring. "You're being weird." Rebecca took a deep breath. "I need to ask you something. And I need you to be honest with me." My heart raced. Had she found out about Nathan and me? Were we more obvious than I thought? "Are you really okay with all of this?" she blurted out. "With me marrying James? Because if you're not, if it's too much to ask." Relief washed over me, followed quickly by guilt. "Becca. I would understand," she continued, words tumbling out. "If you want to back out of being maid of honor. Or not come to the wedding at all. I know I've been selfish, asking you to be part of this when I know how much you loved him." Loved. Past tense. When had that become true? I searched my feelings, surprised to find that the sharp pain I'd carried for months had dulled to an ache. Not gone, perhaps it never would be completely, but no longer all-consuming. "I'm okay," I said, realizing as I spoke that it wasn't entirely a lie. "It's not easy, but I'm getting there. And I want to be your maid of honor. I want to be there for you." Rebecca's eyes filled with tears. "Really? Because I couldn't bear it if you were just pretending." I'm not pretending. Not anymore. I reached for her hand. You and James, you make sense together. In a way that he and I never quite did. Thank you, she whispered, squeezing my hand. For being the most incredible friend. For forgiving me when I didn't deserve it. I smiled, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. That's what best friends do, right? Forgive each other's unforgivable acts. Rebecca laughed through her tears. Right. Like that time I borrowed your favorite sweater and spilled red wine all over it. Exactly like that, I agreed, the comparison so absurd it made us both dissolve into giggles. As our laughter subsided, Rebecca fixed me with a knowing look. So, you and Nathan, huh? I felt heat rise to my cheeks. How did you? Please. He hasn't stopped smiling in weeks. And he suddenly has all these errands that coincide with your schedule. It doesn't take a genius. Are you okay with it? I asked hesitantly. Because if it's weird for you. Weird? No. Surprising? A little. But I think it's wonderful, Maddie. Nathan's one of the good ones, even if he pretends not to be. And he's been crazy about you for years. Years? But we barely spoke until recently. Rebecca rolled her eyes. Why do you think he was always so awkward around you? He had a massive crush but thought you were way out of his league. The revelation was startling. All those family gatherings where Nathan had been distant, those brief interactions that had always felt charged with something I couldn't identify, had they been colored by feelings I never suspected? I don't know if it's going anywhere, I said cautiously. We're taking it slow. Smart. Rebecca nodded approvingly. But for what it's worth, I'm rooting for you too. The morning of the wedding dawned clear and bright, sunlight streaming through my apartment windows as I packed my maid of honor emergency kit, tissues, safety pins, mints, and enough concealer to hide the evidence of my sleepless night. Not that I had been crying. My insomnia had more to do with anticipation than grief. Today would mark an ending, yes, the final chapter of the what-if story I had clung to for months. But it also felt like a beginning. A release from the limbo I had been trapped in since receiving that ivory envelope with its gold-embossed invitation. My phone buzzed with a text from Nathan. You doing okay? I'll be the handsome one in the third row, ready to make a scene if you need a distraction. I smiled, typing back. I think I've got this. But save me a dance later? His response came quickly. I'll save you all of them. When I arrived at the venue, the historic mansion was transformed into a fairy tale setting, roses and twinkling lights adorning every surface, white chairs arranged neatly on the manicured lawn for the outdoor ceremony. I made my way to the bridal suite, where Rebecca was surrounded by her mother, Emily, Zoe, and a small army of stylists. Maddie, she exclaimed when she saw me, rushing over in her robe. Oh, thank God. I was starting to worry you wouldn't come. Of course I came, I said, my voice steady. Where else would I be? As the morning progressed, I played my part perfectly, holding the makeup mirror, adjusting the veil, calming Rebecca's nerves with gentle reassurances. It wasn't an act anymore. I genuinely wanted this day to be perfect for her. The ceremony was a blur of music, flowers, and carefully chosen words. I stood beside Rebecca, my emerald dress a stark contrast to her ivory gown, and watched as James promised to love, honor, and cherish her for the rest of his life. When the officiant asked if anyone objected to the union, I felt Nathan's eyes on me from the audience. I met his gaze steadily, offering a small smile to assure him that I was okay. I now pronounce you husband and wife, the officiant declared. You may kiss the bride. As James took Rebecca in his arms, sealing their vows with a kiss, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The last threads binding me to what might have been had finally broken, setting me free. At the reception, I delivered my maid of honor speech with genuine emotion, recounting stories of Rebecca's kindness, her loyalty, her capacity for love. I spoke of how she and James complemented each other, how their happiness was evident to anyone who saw them together. I didn't mention our shared history. Some truths were better left unspoken. To Rebecca and James, I concluded, raising my champagne glass. May your love continue to grow with each passing day. The crowd echoed the toast, glasses clinking as Rebecca mouthed thank you across the room, tears in her eyes. As promised, Nathan claimed his dance, his arm warm around my waist as we swayed to a slow melody. You were amazing today, he said, his voice low. Your speech, the way you held it together, I'm in awe of you, Madeline Hayes. I looked up at him, taking in his warm brown eyes, the way the corners crinkled when he smiled. It was easier than I expected. Seeing them together, it feels right, somehow. Like this is how it was always supposed to be. And us? He asked, his hand tightening slightly on my waist. How does this feel? I considered the question, the answer coming more easily than I would have thought possible just months ago. Like a new chapter. One I'm excited to start writing. Nathan's smile was like sunrise breaking through clouds. I like the sound of that. As the song ended, I caught sight of James and Rebecca dancing nearby. James's eyes met mine over Nathan's shoulder, a silent question in their depths. I nodded slightly, a gesture of forgiveness, of acceptance, of letting go. He nodded back, gratitude evident in his expression, before turning his full attention to his new wife. They're leaving for their honeymoon tomorrow, Nathan said, following my gaze. 2 weeks in Italy. I know, I replied, a hint of mischief creeping into my voice. Which means I suddenly have a lot of free time on my hands. Nathan's eyebrow rose. Is that so? Any plans for how to fill it? I was thinking of exploring some new possibilities. Seeing where they might lead. As we swayed to the music, I rested my head on Nathan's shoulder, feeling lighter than I had in months. The future stretched before me, uncertain but full of promise. And for the first time since receiving that wedding invitation on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, I was genuinely looking forward to discovering what came next.